say there's a metaphorical
I know, we brought it back yesterday. Since the day we met, Daenerys.
I'm so offended.
Wait, I need to
Just go.
So wait, what do we do?
Is the opposing team
Literally,
ready?
I am not debating.
Figure it out.
You
Okay.
can make it debate.
Does anyone have pens? Because I forgot my pencil box.
I have
Oh my god, just use my pencil. Just use my
Is this
pencil.
yours?
Yes, just
I'm hoping the first two speeches will give me somewhat of an idea of what the team's saying.
Oh my god.
You too, Ariel.
Okay, yeah, how did you prep without knowing what it was?
I don't know. I started prepping some random thing that didn't even seem related at all.
That's us.
I went to random tabs and wrote down like one word from each tab.
Me,
So it's
Ariel.
literally like
That's
Medicare,
It's literally like, what is your word
copyright,
for this?
consumer.
My god, okay.
I'm hoping Daenerys can make sense of it. She's good.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways. Alright. As the leader of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the TPP will do more harm than good. As a brief roadmap, I'm going to go over framework, then address the affirmative team's 3 contentions. Alright, so TPP stands for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or a trade deal that's been made between the US and 11 other Asian countries. We're going to be, criterion is net benefits for this round. It's fact. Yeah. Okay, moving on to affirmative case. First contention is going to be, oh shoot, how do I phrase this? No, because I don't want to say hegemony. Okay, fine. Hegemony down with China. Okay. No! 1, okay. Okay, the TPP is essentially referred to as the everyone but China deal because the Asian countries that we're pairing up with to do this deal, it doesn't exclude, it excludes China. And second of all, we relied on China for imports. As of August 2015, we received $45 billion worth of exports from China. We just passed the TPP, so essentially this is going to go into effect. So China is essentially going to view us as refusing to trade with them, as trying to bring down their economy. And that's bad because while China's offended, and that can possibly lead to them cutting off their imports, or 2, if they get offended enough, they won't work with us on other matters of foreign policy, which could eventually lead to conflict, war, and loss of life. I'm going to go second contention, consumer rights, 2 subpoints. A, intellectual development. B, medical stuff. Okay, A, intellectual development. Okay, so there are two main points under this. So first of all, privacy. So it was discovered that the U.S. federal government has essentially been spying on Japan, and when Japan found out about this, they withdrew from negotiations over the TPP. However, we managed to draw them back into the deal. So essentially what this tells the federal government is that it's okay to spy on other countries and their people, which is problematic, obviously, because people don't have, essentially people lose their right to privacy. Second of all, copyrights. So what the TPP would do is that it'll increase copyright standards, or it'll enforce those copyright standards, which means that, I'll take your question later if I have time, but what that means is that people who break these copyright laws or infringement laws will have harsher penalties, like paying fines or receiving criminal penalties. So impacts to this. So people lose money, and once again, and they could possibly be jailed or brought to court for this because criminal penalties. Yeah. Okay. Subpoint B, medical stuff. All right. I'll take your question later if I have time. After this contention, please. Okay. So what the TPP will do is that it's going to give monopoly rights for large pharmaceutical companies, and this is bad because it's going to increase increase prices of medication from these companies. So that means that prices increase, and second of all, that also means that they can deny vaccine treatments to consumers, because essentially what happens is that the TPP and Medicare are binded by this deal, and bound by this deal. Okay.
Did I write bind?
No, I wrote binds and I tried to do like past tense.
Oh, I wrote bind. Oh,
Yeah, okay. Impacts. So it makes it harder for people, especially of lower socioeconomic status, to get medication. So 1, you could lose more. So essentially, like, you could lose more money from trying to buy medication, or 2, you don't get them at all, which means that you could possibly die. So death goes down. So yeah, death goes up. The number of deaths increases. And the standard of living, especially for people in America, will go down because they don't have access to medication. the medication that they need. I can take your question now.
Yeah. So what kind of number one, what kind of information were they taking from
Okay.
people?
And
two, what copyright infringement laws are there?
copyright infringement laws. Anyways, well, there are copyright infringement laws in the status quo. Okay, like I'm not just saying that there's none at all. Just because I don't know about them doesn't mean that they don't exist, right? And then second of all, what kind of information they were stealing? I don't know. Claire gave me that information. Okay. Moving on to address jobs, or well, not jobs, but economy.
This is how competency.
Okay. So essentially, the TPP was based off of NAFTA, and NAFTA has been very detrimental for the economy in several ways. So, okay. TPP essentially expands NAFTA's special protections for firms that offshore U.S. jobs. So that means that we're going to be losing U.S. manufacturing jobs. So actually, NAFTA has after NAFTA, we've lost 5 million American manufacturing jobs, which means that 1 in 4 American manufacturing jobs have been lost since the implementation of NAFTA. And in addition, NAFTA also increased income inequality because once these people who took these manufacturing jobs lost these jobs, they've been forced to compete with other people for lower paid jobs. And by increasing this competition for lower paid jobs, we see that wages have actually decreased in those sectors. So there's been an overall decrease in wages, so that has contributed to income inequality. So so essentially wage losses for everybody, except for the richest 10% of the United States. Yeah. And so for these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution.
So you teachers don't have to.
Yeah.
This would have made no sense. No, because I was like, what are you talking about? And then like I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay. Thank you. See, don't just feel happy. I have to somewhere.
I'll like bang on the table when I need the case. Okay.
Is your case not ready?
No, it's right there.
This is reputation.
Okay.
Is everybody
You're
ready?
supposed to prep reputation.
I was trying to prep law for you, but then
You don't give up.
no, because then I have to prep like consumer rights and jobs.
I have no reputation.
It's okay. Come on.
Yeah, you can manage without them. Is everyone ready?
Yeah. Wait, no.
In a manner of speaking. Okay, then as a brief off-time roadmap. Off-time?
No.
Off-time?
No.
Okay.
It's not off time.
It's not off-time. Yeah.
As a brief off-time roadmap, I'll be going over the affirmative team's case and then moving on to our case. With that, time starts now. So as the first speaker of the negation team, I strongly negate today's given resolution that the TPP will do more harm than good. So I'll be repeating the case right now. So their first contention is how it excludes China as well as Asian countries, and how China will be offended. The negation team would like to refute this by saying, the negation team would like to refute this by saying that China and America are extremely interdependent on each other. Therefore, China will be less likely to draw out of exporting goods for America and vice versa, just because they're so dependent on each other, even with this Trans-Pacific Partnership. That being said, right now they're still trying to negotiate trying to get China to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So it's unclear whether or not the impact on the affirmative team will actually happen because they're still negotiating on it. Therefore, this point should not stand, and if it does, it's highly unlikely. Moving on to their second contention of consumer rights. So they talked about they talked about privacy and how apparently America was spying on Japan. However, they provided no source for this, and they didn't ask what kind of information this was. Spying on other people, quote unquote, spying on other people is actually backed up by the Constitution. I believe in the Fourth Amendment about something. It was about in one of the amendments, it's in the Constitution. It's in the amendments that that America has the right to look for people never mind. America in general has the right to look into things that they feel is threatening to their national security, and because they didn't provide what kind of information America was specifically quote unquote spying on, we can't weigh this on the debate simply because it may not even be true to begin with. And if it was, you should just drop this from the flow. Okay. They also talked about this copyright infringement, and how people can be jailed or go to court. And these copyright infringement laws are already in the status quo, and basically what they do is they basically protect the work of people. They protect people's work so that other people can't steal it. So essentially, this is a benefit. By enforcing copyright infringement laws, less people are stealing ideas from other people. For example, pirated movies. Pirated movies are a free way to watch movies However, and this causes the actual movies in the theater to raise up their prices because they can't afford to have someone steal their movies. However, people keep pirating their movies because the copyright laws aren't as strict as they want to be. But with the support of copyright infringement, or with the enforcing copyright infringement laws, people can be jailed or go to court, like what the affirmative team said. Therefore, people's hard-earned work would be saved. People would be more likely to go and make innovation because they're protected by stronger copyright laws. So the negation team fails to see this as a detriment and sees it more as a benefit from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Also, the third contention is how it's based off of NAFTA and how there'd be lower paying jobs and lower wages. However, NAFTA has actually turned out to be pretty beneficial to the economy because they have post NAFTA. Nations, or the 17 countries that were in NAFTA, went from a $3 billion deficit to a $31 billion surplus in money. So it has brought a lot of money to their economy, which is essentially extremely beneficial because once they have more money, it's beneficial for their countries because anyway, so it's extremely beneficial for their countries because if countries have more money, then if countries have more money in their economy, they can do good things for their people, etc. Lots of good impacts for this. Education, yeah. Okay, moving on to our own case. So our first contention is how it would strengthen political ties. So economics and international relations go hand in hand. And this has been even shown in history. For example, Mongolia and Rome flourished in the past because there were skirmishes, but there was less war and conflict in general between countries because trade was a flourishing thing. This will lead to less war, and this is also seen, and in turn, this means they become dependent on each other. Once they become dependent on each other, So even if they're not allies, they'll be less likely to go to war, which is extremely beneficial because less war means more peace. Yeah, because when people are at peace with each other, the quality of life goes up, and when the quality of life goes up, more people have more. I have 5 minutes left. Leave me alone.
No, you don't.
No, I mean I'm at 5 minutes. Stop. Okay, people have more. It's better for them. Okay, the quality of life goes up, which is extremely beneficial for every single human being in this. Okay, our second contention is of human rights. So in New Yorker it says 12 countries follow the labor standards in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is against child labor, against extreme, enforces minimum wage, etc. So the impact of this forces them to follow labor laws, and it sets a precedent to other countries as well. So
stop spreading. What was your second contention?
Human rights. Tackling human rights. Okay, so Colombia. So for example, one of the 12 countries in the Trans-Pacific Partnership is Colombia, and Colombia has been known for having more than 1 million children, according to ColombiaReports.com, to have human rights, to have child labor standards. And with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, they'll be following strict child labor laws, which means that they'll having less human rights abuses, which means more dignity for the human person. Moving on to our final contention of responsibility. And my partner will go over this in her speech, but basically, with responsibility, with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, there'll be more responsibility for countries, which is overall beneficial because they'll set a precedent to other countries. And with that, I strongly negate today's given resolution because clearly the Trans-Pacific Partnership has more benefits than detriments. That was 7:03 on mine.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Wait, I have questions?
Yeah. Our first contention was political ties.
Pearl,
Yeah.
use your time better so you don't have to start spreading
Yeah.
your
I'm
last
sorry.
point.
I know, I was like, I don't think Ariel can write all this.
I am
That's
a
my
slow
strategy.
writer in
That's my
general. This is
strategy.
ridiculous.
That way they can jump all their points.
I hate you.
I think we could actually.
Speaking of dating, I'm teaching how to collapse.
Yeah, just drop it. Just drop it. And then we'll do, like,
Just drop it. Got it. Just drop it.
Don't collapse out of it. Don't drop it.
fine.
So,
Wait,
Wait, is collapse?
No, Meredith was like,
Whoa.
I will teach you how to collapse
And I
today.
was like,
Meredith
no.
told
And
me
then
to
she was
teach
like,
you.
what did she just didn't respond to me? Like, what even is she? She just didn't
Collapsing
respond
is
to me
like-
after I said no. I don't know how to
We're
collapse.
chasing on this, so.
Probably because she started talking to me.
Okay. Well, you're teaching us. I'm just gonna drop that for now.
I don't really understand this.
You're welcome.
But did I say it well enough? 'Cause
Literally.
Lily is giving me a weird look.
Okay, I'm
Lily, can you not give weird looks and be an unbiased, appearing judge when you?
But the weird faces are what parents would give you if they don't
Yeah.
understand. You're supposed to learn from the face and be like, oh, they don't get it. I'll explain it differently.
But we know you get it. You
But I don't understand. I don't
It didn't
understand
make
what you.
sense.
But the thing is, I don't understand what you don't understand. I'm not a face reader. I can't read faces.
Shut up. Not everything's a
Oh,
debate.
you can't read parents' faces.
Yeah,
either.
not everything's a debate.
You know what, Elaine? You should talk to Claire about everything not being a debate. Claire, everything's a debate with you.
Alright, Ariel, go.
Earbuds, like, wait, what? I can't hear you.
Alright, Ariel, go. Okay.
You're not okay.
Hurry up.
Time starts now. As a brief off-time roadmap.
That's so lame!
Oh my god! It was a joke!
I was alluding to her. I said time. I said as a.
Oh,
Moving
go.
on. You guys are
Go.
impossible.
It's like 20 seconds. There you go. I restarted time.
Okay, ready?
I can't start so long. I think I'm
Get
crying.
yourself together,
I
bro.
can't, Merlin!
Hurry up.
Deep breath in, out.
Oh my god.
As
Hurry
a
up.
brief on-time roadmap.
On time. Oh, you start.
You strongly affirm the resolution that the TPP will do more harm than good. It's a brief roadmap. She's going to go for the affirmative case and then move on to justification case. All right, first contention. So we said that. we said that head with China's going to.
I got this.
She doesn't got
Judge.
Head with China's going to go down. Okay, we're
Negation
gonna drop
team
this.
has a statement.
We can
The
win
affirmative team
everything
ready
else.
to
All right,
debate.
second contention.
So our second contention deals with how copyright infringement is already in this. I'll answer your question at the end if I have time. Thank you. So I'll answer your question at the end if I have time. Thanks. Okay. So opponent's reputation dealt with how in the status quo we already had very powerful copyright laws. And also, increasing these copyright laws' punishment is not necessarily a bad thing because it increases innovation, etc. However, in response to this, I would like, and then my opponents also stated that the Constitution supports stealing and spying. and I would like to say that my opponents could not cite the exact clause that is stated in the Constitution. Because it doesn't exist, Merlin! It does! Ask Claire! It does not! It does not exist! And therefore, their entire point based off this argument can be dropped. And then, so, okay. And then, so, my opponent, okay, so,
Oh, address copyright infringement.
I know. So for copyright infringement, my opponents are saying that parroting movies and songs, etc., is extremely bad, and that increasing the punishment for this, such as naming them as criminals and sending them to jail, is extremely beneficial because it promotes innovation. However, a majority of the Americans have already pirated these types of songs and musics and like ideas. And if we want to throw the majority of the United States citizens in jail, then there's nobody left to innovate, and therefore this is, I will answer your question at the end if I have time, thank you. And then my opponents also completely dropped the point on medicine. So my partner clearly stated that medicine, in the TPP, we are giving monopolies to pharmaceutical companies and larger corporations. And the monopolies have been banned in the United States for extremely reasonable reasons. And now we are giving monopolies back to these companies, letting them increase the prices into ridiculous zones, and taking away from people of low socioeconomic classes, which completely impacts them because we are lowering the standard of living for many people and denying them medical care. And my opponents completely dropped this point. And then my opponents, no. Third contention. No, my partner's, no. My opponent's third contention deals with, oh, sorry, we're in the affirmative team. Okay, so my partner's third contention deals with how NAFTA is actually good because it provided a surplus and also filled up the deficit that countries were in. However, this surplus was created at the expense of workers. So maquiladora is at the border of the United States and Mexico has increased significantly due to NAFTA, and all of these steam sweatshops. Was it steam shops?
Alright, we're gonna move on today.
Okay. Yeah. So income inequality surplus is only for the top 10%. Okay, moving on. And then, so my opponent's first contention dealt with Mongolia and Russia and how trade leads to less conflicts and less war, which increases the quality of life. Okay, Mongolia and Russia was like 1,000 years ago, so we cannot exactly compare it to what's going on today. There were no political factors and social factors involved that we are dealing with right now. And so, for example, China being offended by not being included in the TPP is a political.
Wait, no, keep going.
Okay, is a political conflict that the Mongolian Russians did not.
Mongolian Russian.
The golden part.
Oh my god.
Stop laughing.
Moving on. I'm sorry. Okay, anyway. So my opponent's second contention dealt with human rights and how in Colombia there are about 1 million children being abused in many different ways. However, human rights exist in all forms, politically, socially, and economically. If we stop this, if we use the TPP to stop the abuse of children economically, then we're basically encouraging the abuse of children politically and socially. Because
There's already human rights that exist. That's totally right. But then, like, if we like, okay, so it already exists in the status quo, right? So then if you pass the TPP, we're saying that, the human rights that already exist in the status quo in these Asian countries that we're making a deal of partnership with, essentially means that essentially says that,
yeah,
okay,
we're supporting their political. Okay. Yeah, you got the point. Okay. Moving on to my opponent. No, they only had two.
Third contention. Responsibility.
Written down.
No, just read what I wrote.
Oh.
Read what I wrote!
Okay, so as a reputation for my opponent's third contention, which I didn't know they had because they didn't go over it. Okay, so the opponent had, I'll answer it at the end of time. They had no links, they had no evidence, and they didn't consider at all the...
Wait, no, say to the judges, don't consider this. Hurry up!
Judges, don't consider this point. And don't let them pick it up in the second speech. Yeah.
Hey, Ariel, I have a quick message for you.
Wait, Taylor.
Oh,
you have Instagram now, yeah.
That's the follow-up.
That's
You
so
messaged
fun.
you.
Go on, of course not.
Why? This is so fun.
I love it. Is everyone ready?
Yes!
Yes.
Yes!
Yes,
girl!
Will we have words?
Yes, I'm ready. Look at my phone.
My speaker points were 30.
I'm sorry, bro. Death.
Okay.
so sorry. You're so popular.
I feel like I should go to theater. That was hilarious.
Alright, go. Elaine.
Yeah,
Go.
Okay, go.
Wait, what is
oh, a piece of paper.
this? It's brief awesome. Okay. Stop. Welcome to the family. Wait, are you?
It's great to have you here.
We're sort of dysfunctional, but that's his story. Okay. As the second speaker for the negation team, I strongly negate today's resolution that the TPP will do more harm than good. In this speech, I will be going over the on case and then off case. What's the criteria? So, the affirmative team's first contention was China and how hegemony is down with China. And we refuted this by saying that America and China are interdependent and that they still have to negotiate with China since they're so connected. They dropped this when their first speaker spoke for the second speaker, and that is against CHASA rules, I think. So
That's not a good source.
this doesn't. So whatever reputations they might claim to have brought up don't count because their first
No,
speaker
we
was
dropped
also saying- Okay, yeah,
We
they
didn't
dropped it, and
No, we're not gonna let you drop it.
they. So this point doesn't stand, and their impacts don't stand. So China. Okay, moving on. Their second contention was that about consumers, and they talked about intellectual development and how privacy and how the United States spied on Japan, and it's okay to spy on other countries. And my partner said that there's no source of this information, and that we don't know what this information is, and it's crucial for the United States to look through other countries' privacy, security stuff for our own security. So they didn't say anything about this
Yes, we did.
part, but then they moved on to enforcing copyright standards. They talked about So they talked about enforcing copyright standards, and then we said that it was good because it protects creators and allows for more innovation. And then they came up and said that majority of pirated stuff is ideas, and throwing people in jail is unreasonable. But these are we have to look at the bigger picture here. We can't throw every single person in jail, but we can better enforce we can better have companies creating this content and enforce and make sure that those companies that are providing the pirated information don't have their pirated creations of innovators, which allows for more innovation. So we're not planning to throw everyone in jail because of porn. There's no way that this agreement will throw everyone in jail because of pirated movies, but we can help prevent the sources from this pirating. Okay, yeah. Can't throw everyone in jail. And then they talked about monopolies and then their second subpoint was about medical monopolies, increasing prices, and they said monopolies are bad, but these companies can't increase the monopolies so much as to no one will buy them. So they would go out of business if the prices raised too much. And that's bad because then no one gets medical help. At this point, okay, so their third contention was that about NAFTA and how it was detrimental for the economy and how people lost jobs and lower wages and income inequality and maquiladoras. But we already refuted this by saying that since NAFTA, the 17 countries which the U.S. had a trade deal with since 2000, $31 billion surplus. And that is not a loss of money and detrimental for our economy. $31 billion is a lot. Really, that could be used. And even with their maquiladora sweatshops contention, as we have stated earlier, the human rights will be enforced with this trade deal because the international labor system forces them to follow labor laws that keep people in a good state. Majority is a faulty assumption. It benefits everyone. Okay, so our first contention was that of stronger political ties and how countries more dependent on each other for economies will be less likely to fight because they need each other's resources. So even though they said that this was irrelevant because everything happened 1,000 years ago, we can still look back at every other single country in history that we are learning about in lab to see how these countries depended on trade with each other and when they didn't, and when in political conflict their trade collapsed, and how trade allowed more political ties. So it is basic logic that good economic relations lead to good political relations since they depend on each other for basic needs. So our second contention was that of human rights and how child history repeats itself. So our second contention was that of human rights and how we talked about how it sets a precedent in Colombia, and they said that human rights come in all forms. And we're encouraging political abuses, but they had this argument doesn't really connect here. There's no link to how okay, human rights. And it was their first speaker who was talking the entire time again. So they completely dropped this point in their second speech where their second speaker was supposed to be speaking. So we would just like to repeat that these 12 countries will have to follow labor standards and have minimum wage, no child labor. And that's good for the greater good of people because people are buying things that come from not human rights abuses. Our third contention was about responsibilities, and they had no links. Wait, what? And we would just like to clarify this about how, like, the United States, this point can be dropped.
Oh, okay. Is everybody ready? No off-time roadblocks. Ariel, are you blowing?
Look at Bernie Sanders.
Okay. What are you doing? Okay.
Research.
Bernie Sanders.
In the middle of a
Let's be real.
Time starts now. Sorry. As the final speaker of the negation team, I strongly negate today's resolution that the TPP will do more harm than good.
No.
I'd like to start this speech by saying that there's an issue with the rules here. So all the reputations brought up by the first, some of the reputations in the second speech were brought up by the first speaker of the affirmative team. And while their reputations were good, they can't be weighed in this debate because because it's against the rules, Judge. If you vote for them, you're basically promoting cheating essentially what happened was that the second speaker of the affirmative team did not. The second speaker of the affirmative team had very little to say compared to that of the first speaker. It's essentially what happened. So by voting for them, you're voting for a side that cheats, and that's not what we should do in this debate. Because in parliamentary debate, debate should be weighed on fairness and education. This was brought up by the second speaker, my partner, because when she stated that this shouldn't be weighed in this debate. With cheating, there will be less. Cheating is bad. Don't promote cheating, judges. There's less motivation for people to participate because they'll just believe that people who cheat will win. Anyway, moving on. So So I have one voter issue for this debate today, and that's of the criteria on net benefits. So the affirmative team, or the negation team, has provided many more benefits than that of the of the affirmative team. And we talked about how we we protect human rights abuses, and we with the labor standards, which forces these countries to follow labor laws, and it sets a precedent for other countries. So like I stated in my first speech, one of the countries that are involved in the Trans-Pacific Partnership is Colombia, and Colombia is known for their child labor and their human rights abuses. And with these labor standards, it'll be more enforced to not abuse the rights of children. Basically, instead they promote human rights should be weighed first, which is why the Trans-Pacific Partnership does just that. Okay. Yeah. So whatever the affirmative decides to say, human rights should be weighed first in this debate, because that's essentially what people deserve all around the world. Human rights. Everyone has the right to basic human rights and necessities. And countries have the responsibility to fulfill these human rights. Anyway, additionally, one of the points on the affirmative team were actually beneficial for the negation team, because they were beneficial. They stated that copyright infringement was people being jailed or going to court or fined for copyright infringement is essentially bad. But in the status quo, people's hard-earned work is taken away due to copyright infringement, and many of these people get away with it. Therefore, with these enforced laws, people will be less likely to pirate movies and steal other people's work, which promotes innovation. With more innovation, we have a greater spread of ideas. More people are getting creative and making more technologies for our world. Therefore, bettering this world altogether. And for the negation team, we see enforcement of copyright infringement laws as a good thing. Also, there are a lot of economic benefits to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. As many people stated, in the third contention of the affirmative team, they stated how the Trans-Pacific Partnership is based off of NAFTA and how they're very similar to NAFTA. But in the past, NAFTA has actually been beneficial, because in the 17 countries that have been involved in NAFTA, lots of money was made, and this money can be used for good, not just for the top 10%. It benefits everyone. That was rude. Okay. It benefits everyone. Greater good. Criterion. Net benefits. Vote no.
Okay. Fun times. Ariel. Okay.
How am I supposed to know?
Okay. As the leader of the affirmative team, I once again strongly affirm today's resolution that the TPP would do more harm than good. As a brief roadmap, I'm first going to address some things in the flow, and then I'm going to go voter issues. Okay, this whole rules thing that they brought up, this is a practice debate. Whatever. Who cares? Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. I have a lot of stuff to say. Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's discuss the Constitution.
Okay. You know what? Whatever. Okay. Anyways, moving on to voters. All right. First of all, I'm going to address consumer rights, mainly focusing on privacy and medication. All right. So first of all, privacy. So the negation team has had this really big problem with what has the U.S. been stealing, and it's crucial for the U.S. federal government to look through privacy information for our security. Do they really need all this information about the consumers of Japan? Do they really need it for their security? That is what I ask you, George. Yeah, so once again, essentially, the negation team is saying that it's completely okay for the U.S. federal government to like take away these people's rights to privacy, and that's bad. I did specify. Okay. Anyways, moving on to the next point about that medication. So they essentially dropped this throughout the entire round, with the second negation speaker saying that they can't increase the monopolies enough. They're giving out stuff that the products that these companies are selling, these pharmaceutical companies are selling, are medicines. We need medicines. So we're not just going to completely, not buy it. Because, yes, we're not going to buy it. But companies can raise their prices enough where people will still be able to say, well, that's affordable. I'm going to sacrifice my money for this medication that I need. So they will still get money, and yes, there will be people who won't be able to afford this medicine, which means that once again, the rate of death could increase, and standard of living could go down. And as the affirmative team said, everyone has the right to basic necessities. Negation team said in their last speech that everyone has the basic right to necessities. So necessities does include medication. Moving on to address economy. Okay, so essentially the affirmative team, the negation team has been saying, oh, NAFTA was totally beneficial because, trade deficit, we closed it. Yeah, we got money. As my partner said, we got money at the expense of the workers. So the surplus came from the expense of these workers. We got an increase in maquiladoras and in bad working conditions. So, yeah, and once again, as I mentioned, okay, from NAFTA, we lost 5 million American manufacturing jobs. That's 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs. We lost 25% of the manufacturing sector. And that's not new information. And income inequality increases once again. So obviously NAFTA has had a significant detrimental economic effect. And yeah, they've only had one statistic to prove that, oh, NAFTA is so great. No, it's not. I'm gonna go into human rights, which they also went into. That's nice. All right. I'm gonna address. Okay, where was that? Oh, I didn't address everything I wanted to. Okay. So they've been like, oh yeah, we dropped our human rights point, and because they didn't understand our refutation to their argument. Okay, so once again. Okay, human rights exist in all forms, Elaine. All right. So my partner actually said stuff about this. Just because you didn't float doesn't mean that it wasn't there. Okay. Okay. Human rights exist in all forms. Yeah. Okay. So there are human rights abuses not just in working conditions in the status quo, but there's also other different kinds, like political and yeah. Okay. Again. Yeah, those still exist in the status quo, and by forming the TPP with these countries that have these human rights abuses, we're saying, okay, yeah, keep going, it's good, awesome, right? And so they just continue human rights, and the problem gets even worse. That just completely turns their whole contention. If you look at the criteria today, net benefits, we went on economy and human rights, which were the really two huge points in this debate. We termed all their stuff. So we went on our criteria, which is net benefits, just to remind you again. Oh, and weigh human rights first. I'm done. Oh.
The negation is gone.
No. More feedback. Let us get our negation team back.